It's time. It's time for another wonderful, magical,
We
sensual.
we need that Starfield music. I
Yeah.
feel that would fit
Oh,
perfectly
that
here.
would have been better than that what I just did. Yeah, but it's time for another episode of the Free Roam podcast.
Yes,
It's
finally.
yes.
Sorry that I wasn't here last week. I was in Bordeaux. I can say it. I was at the Assassin's Creed studio playing Mirage. That's all we can say at this point. Have you
Yes.
been publicly telling something to
Yes,
people?
I've also played Mirage, but amazingly enough, that is all we can say about it. So sorry
We're
to
gonna have
like.
such a fun conversation after the show is offline.
Yeah, when you guys can't hear anything.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's true.
But no, we're gonna talk about that when the time comes. I don't think we're even allowed to disclose when that time is, but
No,
when that time comes,
soon.
presumably
Before
in the
release.
future.
Before October 5th.
Yeah, before October 5th and after right now, we will talk
Yeah.
about it and have things to say. So we have had kind of a wild week and a half. On your end, of course, you were traveling to Bordeaux, which was super cool. On my end, we were frantically trying to get the Starfield review done. I am under contract for a house, so we're trying to buy a place. That's set to close on the 22nd, so that's moving very, very quickly. And
in Starfield or in real life?
real life.
Okay, real life.
In
Okay,
Starfield.
I mean,
Guys, it's a big deal. I'm under contract in Starfield.
I got this trade, this dream house trade, and
Yeah.
we're figuring stuff out.
It's great. My mortgage is a lot, but we'll be able to manage it. Yeah, I've taken up piracy. So yeah, we've both got a lot of stuff going on. Of course, because JorRaptor was traveling. Last week's show just didn't really pan out with the schedules, but we are here now, ready to catch up on everything. I mean, I think first things first, for everybody listening, they have heard my opinion of Starfield to the moon and back.
Wow,
I'm not sure they know your opinion of the game. What are your thoughts?
We haven't done a review. Straight into the tips and tricks, and that has been my life ever since I got back from Bordeaux, because I fell immediately in the embargo. So we've been doing a lot of tips and tricks. I am loving the game. I think it's really good. I think my expectations were right. I wasn't like expecting this space sim. I was expecting this Bethesda RPG in space, and I do think it's way more than Fallout in space. It's like they are really doing a lot of cool new things. And I'm just we talked about it, I think, on the podcast as well, and just before, like or when they did the Starfield Direct, or even like last year, Todd Howard already said like 1,000 planets, and I was like, but why? Like that doesn't sound like a cool thing at all. Why are you like saying as if it's like a cool feature? But actually playing the game, the idea that there are like still like many systems that I've just haven't been to, or that I can like get missions and go to these planets that I might never come back to. Like I think this game constantly surprises me in a very good way, and maybe that's really like a personal thing, but also usually I figure games out quite fast in terms of like what the sort of boundaries are. And in this game, it feels like kind of endless. And I'm constantly seeing new stuff, and I'm constantly getting distracted. And there's just, we barely scratch the surface. Like, it feels weird to say that when, of course, the game officially came out, or today, right? Yeah, it's today.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
like the official launch, but we of course have been playing before release. And like I think it's gonna be fascinating also with the community to find things out, and like discover cool quest lines, cool hidden items, cool combinations. I'm kind of blown away by it. I think it's really fun. I totally see the sort of issues it has. I do think having a sort of vehicle, we talked about that before as well, would have been cool. I do think that sometimes running for 600 meters kind of too long. But like that, and of course, like some of the menus, I personally don't really mind just being able to fast travel from from my location to the next sort of completely different system, completely different planets with one press of the button. I think that's pretty convenient, although I get why it kind of like ruins the sort of space exploration that some people like, although you can then still play it that way. It will just be a bit slower. So I'm really loving it, and I think the story is surprising without spoiling, of course, anything. And I'm almost at the end. I've been like doing a lot of side content, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do the main mission now, and especially the second half gets really, really good in my opinion. So that's kind of my take so far.
Yeah.
And I see here in the chat Theo Brainer, Jor's bot, and to be fair, and you say in the title of this stream, Starfield drama, and I gotta be honest, I'm only seeing positive stuff. I might be in this like amazing bubble where everyone is like happy, but I'm not seeing a lot of negativity. Only the reviews, like some of the 7 out of 10s, which I think is like pretty low for what this game is. So yeah, that's kind of my short take, but I'm sure we will get more into it.
Oh yeah, no, I mean everybody's heard my opinions, and I think it's a pretty good game. I think it's far from a masterpiece. I think what Bethesda is really good at is pretty much antithetical to most of what Starfield presents. So they're typically really good at hand-placed environments, environmental storytelling, handcrafting environments that tell stories, in other words. That's what they're really, really good at. That's one of my favorite parts of Fallout 3, of Fallout 4, of Skyrim, Oblivion. Like, you can just walk into any building and there's going to be a story told passively by way of the environment and how they've crafted things. I mean, the common example I've seen a ton of people bring up is that, like, in Fallout 3, you can go, I forget what the exact name of it is, but there's an area you can go to where there's like a dining hall, a cafeteria, and then the floor has little slits in it as you walk on it, kind of like a metal grate. And you can crawl and get under there while exploring. And there's a bunch of like forks and spoons and knives and trash underneath the floor of the cafeteria, because the level designers thought, oh, if people were sitting here eating, there would be stuff that falls through the floor. And so they went to the trouble of adding those little details. That's what BGS is really, really good at. And so for some reason they decided to do a procedural generation game that they were not particularly good at. And as you said, like there's weird eccentricities that rear their ugly head the more you play. Like if right now the 600-meter run or the 1,000, or I guess kilometer run to a point of interest feels a little annoying or bland, by the time you really start to rack up the hours, it just starts to get mind-numbing. And especially when it would be so easy to fix. Like, it would be so easy for them to fix, and yet they didn't. And I think it's because if they gave you vehicles, then you'd reach the invisible walls very quickly, and they didn't want people to do that, so they didn't give you vehicles. But I mean, it's just all told, I think it's a good game, but it has a lot of really funky, weird things about it that mods will be able to fix very, very quickly, and I think will greatly improve. However, it's a classic BGS game. It's a pretty good game that modders will make great. And in some ways, that's exactly what we were expecting. One thing I do want to give both of us a pat on the back for is that we both had the Metacritic score like nailed when we were guessing about it 2 weeks ago on the show.
I said 88 and you were 86 or something, or 87, like around that too, right?
Yeah.
It's like
I think I said high 80s. I usually give a range, like probably 86 to 89, somewhere in there. And it's floating right about like 87, I think, on Xbox. Yeah. So it's crazy. But I mean, all told, I think a lot of people are having a lot of fun with it. There's always going to be drama surrounding some games. There's drama right now. It's kind of shifted. The drama from the 7 out of 10s and the 8 out of 10s has died down.
I mean, I'm gonna like say this. I've been following the Starfield Reddit, and I really think that those reviews actually helped put some people like put their boots back on the ground a bit. And then when they actually start playing, they're like, wait, this is way better than the 7 out of 10 that I was like expecting. Of course, we had the direct, then the sort of expectations were sky high, but then it kind of went down. And I think, especially what I'm hearing from New Game Plus and how amazing that is, which I can't wait. I just can't wait to try that out. I already have some ideas where that's going. And like, I personally, I'm just like constantly like, for me, I haven't had those moments where I'm like, what am I actually doing? Because there's so much good stuff that I can still do. So maybe at one point, if I've done like all the faction quests, all the story missions, and I'm indeed going after, I don't know, some resources or something, then maybe it will be a bit less interesting. But so far, I'm just like, I just want to keep playing. I'm just really sort of addicted to it. And there are like some little things, but I like the menus, the inventory management constantly, obviously, and just like, so the persuasion is kind of weird. That they could have done a better job with that. You're like, hey, just give me the key. Oh, that's a good point. And then he gives you the key.
Yeah, I
It's
won't.
like,
I won't go into detail for spoiler reasons, but there is. Is it part of the main story or faction quest? I think it's a faction quest line actually.
okay.
And it might be the one you're thinking of because it's basically that. Like, there's a character that has an extremely valuable thing in their possession. And they're kind of guarding like a safe basically that's holding this thing. And they have the code to the safe to get this really valuable thing, and no one else does. And you can just like go ask like, pretty please, and they just give it to you. It's like really, really weird. And the way they justify it in the dialogue is that they're just like, oh, just please don't tell anyone. I've had a long week. And it's just like, we're just like, what? Like, okay.
Yeah,
It's
that,
so
that,
weird.
that sure is kind of weird. That sure is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But like here also in the chat, the faction quests are so good. I totally agree. They really like put you in a completely different role. So I just think that they did a great job with those. And just, I think, going to a planet each time, and even though it's only like the sort of scenery is different, I think it's kind of awesome, because usually in like a big open world game, even if you like go to an outpost, you're like, there must be something here, because there's like this locked cage, or there's like this door that I can't open yet. I'm sure that I will, like, I'm clearing this now. I'm sure in like 30 minutes when I pick up the side mission, I will be back. And in Starfield, you're constantly going to brand new locations you otherwise would not have thought of to go to, although you can go there before that. So I think the amount of like smaller levels actually works really well for the sort of mystery and constant surprise in a game like this. And I think like the combat is actually surprisingly great for what I've been playing. I think the shooting works pretty fine. I've been like playing quite a lot in third person mode, even though that's of course not ideal. But I do like that it's pretty easy to do compared to previous Bethesda games. And I think overall I'm just wanna keep playing, and I'm just curious where they will go next. I totally think the sort of impact of your choices, like for example, I have theft rank 4, so I'm stealing weapons now from NPCs. Like there's one a 3-star ranger chick, Emma. I was like sneaking. I was like, what the heck? She has like a legendary sort of weapon. And then you steal it, and then the next time you go on a mission with her, and she doesn't have a weapon. It's like funny stuff like that. And it's constantly like, is that possible? And of course, it is. Or you have this like, oh, we have to like talk this guy. We have to persuade him or think of a way for him to like show his fault or whatever. And I was like, let's see if I can just crouch, get the key. So I did not even talk to the guy. I could just like skip this quest step, immediately continue. Stuff like that is just, there's just so much possible in this game. Missions have so many different ways that they can go. And obviously on your first playthrough, you will only see one way it will go. But I think that I just haven't seen that in an RPG in quite some time, actually. So I think that's cool.
For me, it's been like 5-6 weeks because of Baldur's Gate. But,
Yeah, sorry.
you know.
Yeah, I haven't played Baldur's Gate. I should say that. You're right.
Fine,
Like,
you're
of
fine.
course, Baldur's Gate's probably doing this way better. But I was waiting for the PlayStation version, and there's like a ton of other stuff coming.
Yeah.
I will totally check that out because I'm hearing amazing things. Another thing for me, Starfield, like I'm not really a space person. I don't know. Never like Star Trek.
Yeah, just not into
Yeah,
sci-fi. Yeah.
Interstellar, I thought it was a pretty bad movie, and I know I'm gonna get flamed for that. But this game, like docking,
You're just
like,
stirring the pot. You're just stirring
yeah,
the pot.
come at me, come at me. Now I'm like, this game, like docking and then seeing the first person sort of view where you're like, and just like the sort of. Normally, I'm not a space person, but now I'm like, yeah, let's go. I want to go to each planet. I want to like. I love that if you take a photo with the photo mode, it actually appears in your loading screen.
Mm-hmm. That's super cool.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Like,
I don't know
like,
why other games aren't doing that. Yeah, it's no brainer.
Yeah, that's like a super brilliant thing that actually makes because usually photo mode's only for like a small portion of the players, but now it's like, oh yeah, I went to that planet for that mission, and here you got some photos of that. So there are like a lot of smart things like that, and I think we really scratched the surface in terms of like there's like a manipulation skill. I'm not sure if you know about that one where you can like manipulate people and say, hey, storekeeper, run away, and then you're gonna steal stuff from them.
It is great. Like the skill trees, I guess they're not really trees. They're more like small hedges, but the skill system is pretty varied. Like by the time, like even for a lot of people, if you're like level, I don't know, 25, 30, 35, you have played the game for a good long while. Maybe it equates, I'm not sure exactly, but maybe to like an hour per level roughly. And at that point, like there's a lot of skills still to get. Like if you want to get really into base building, you have to basically specialize your character in those skills. There's a whole skill tree a lot of people probably don't even touch until they finished doing everything else other than base building. Like I was actually kind of surprised because in Fallout 4, they kind of push you towards base building pretty much immediately. It's one of the first things you do is you go back with Preston, you clear out the neighborhood, you build a couple of little things. And it's even tied into the main quest where you have to build some stuff to get into the Institute, blah, blah, blah. But in Starfield, it's like a total end game system. Ship customization is very much earlier on, but base building, yeah, you don't want to do it.
It's like there for people. I'm like, give me a villa, give me a penthouse on the top of freaking Neon. I will just look over everyone, place all my freaking weapon workbenches and stuff in that house. Not bother with the base. Although I know I should because you can like get a lot of resources from it.
Yeah.
But I like that it's like this. That's why for me at this moment in time, Starfield feels like there's so much possibility. There's so many things that I still haven't really touched. That I'm constantly like, yeah, I'm like, hard to say, but it's like I'm constantly figuring out, okay, what do I want to do next? Because it's kind of overwhelming, but in a good way. I think, for example, also the space battles, I have like the wanted trait. So then the spaceships, sometimes like the bounty hunters come in and like pay up or we're gonna take you out. But then you are, of course, like going to battle them, probably win, and then board their ship, and the bounty like captain has like a way larger ship. So you're like with low gravity, like sneaking around. I'm kind of getting like Call of Duty Infinite Warfare vibes, which was one of my favorite actually. And just like exploring that ship, I'm just really liking it. I think the boarding and stuff. Sorry, I'm
no, you're fine.
getting sidetracked, but I wanted to insert some positivity here. And a lot of people are like now focused on the fact that I said Interstellar was kind of meh. But hey, here we are.
No, I think it's good. And like, I think it's easy for people, as I mentioned in my review, to dwell on the bad because it's really easy for me to quickly say, I think the combat's pretty good. I think the skill system is pretty comprehensive. There's a lot of play styles. Like that takes 5 seconds to say. But if I say hey, the procedural engine does a terrible job of placing unique points of interest because tons of them are repeated. That's something I have to justify. Like I have to spend 2 minutes showing footage, walking people through and proving that point. Whereas saying the gunplay feels good is something I can just throw out and assert. And I think as a result, it means that a lot of the time on or in the video is going to be spent justifying those like critiques. And as a result, people think that the overwhelming opinion is a very critical one or a negative one. But like I've said a thousand times, I think Starfield is a pretty good game. I don't think it's a masterpiece, but I think it's pretty good. And a lot of people are going to have a ton of fun with it for
Imagine
years.
getting this on the Game Pass. That's like going into Todd Howard's house and just stealing from him. It's stealing $15 for this game. I'm sorry.
Just
What is this?
yeah,
Todd Howard calling the police?
this
What the heck, dude?
quality of game. I mean, I would love honestly to know the numbers involved with
sure we're
the
gonna get them.
early access. Well, what I mean
yeah.
specifically, like the 35 or 36, whatever it was, dollar upgrade versus the people playing through regular Game Pass. Because I mean, on Steam there were what 240,000 concurrent players that paid for the premium for $100 a piece.
Yeah, I saw a tweet actually saying that they estimated 1 million for both Xbox and PC, like sold through through early access. And to be fair, I saw that as well. Like I was already posting tips and tricks around the early access, and they already did really well. And like on TikTok as well. So and even like in the UK charts, number 7 was the Game Pass upgrade. So not even the premium edition, but the upgrade for so then you go to a UK like GameStop or whatever they have, and then you grab the box, you only get a code, you need Game Pass at home, and then you can it's kind of crazy, but it was a number 7.
That's why. Yeah, I mean, and looking at the stats right now, I mean, to be fair, it is a Wednesday afternoon here in the States. So this isn't necessarily the best indicator, but right now, global launch, it's at 267,000 players. So that only puts it behind Baldur's Gate 3 at 369,000, Dota 2 at 550, and Counter-Strike, of course, well over 1.1 million. But I mean, it's doing very, very well, and that's on Steam. And a lot of people who probably waited for day one and not day minus 5 are probably Game Pass. So I'm sure it's doing very, very well. But my question is just, I would love to know the numbers as to whether this is truly viable for Xbox. Because this was a very expensive game to make. And of course, it's getting a ton of attention. Lots of people are playing it. But that doesn't mean necessarily it was profitable.
To be fair, you could argue, like, how much did they pay for Bethesda?
Well, for ZeniMax, 7.5 billion.
7.5. You could argue that this game cost Microsoft like 2 billion. Like this is the reason why they bought it. Like this short, because otherwise they only had Forza this year. If you think about it,
yeah,
so that would have been like a disaster.
I mean, the other piece of it is that they get the benefit of ZeniMax's debt. They get the access and all of their IP, all of the assets under them.
Yeah,
so
that's more long term, obviously. But like, it is always about Bethesda Game Studios. These other games are great, Doom and Wolfenstein, but they only sell like a few million. Like that doesn't like do anything for them. These games are huge. They even estimated that if it would launch on PlayStation, it would sell 10 million. So that's already like money that they're not. My prediction, I think this is gonna come to PlayStation in like 3 years.
You think so?
I think they will do it. Yeah, because
I mean, in 3 years, do you think PlayStation players give a shit? Like, because already
they probably will.
Personally, like,
then we have vehicles with the DLC.
Jesus, I think if they wait 3 years, nobody gives a crap anymore. Just being honest.
Really?
Like,
no.
Frankly, the game already feels woefully outdated, and it can still be a great game, a fun game, but this thing is pretty far behind the curve. And I think if they wait 3 years,
compared to what?
Compared to like every other, not just space sim, but open world adventure game, like of the last 5 years, The fact that every time you go between buildings or within a city, you go from within a store to outside into the main city, there's load screens every single time that you move anywhere. Like, that is ridiculous. Five going on 6 years ago.
But isn't that because if I like put a freaking apple in a trash can in that store, that the moment if I come back 30 hours later, it's still there?
I will be honest, I don't know what effect the apple has on load screens, but the effect is
like,
the same.
Because you have like so much stuff going on. I'm like giving this freaking outfit to this character at like hour 5, and then 100 hours later, I'm like, give me that outfit back, and she will still have it, or whatever. Like there are so many systems in place, and to be honest, I prefer them exploring these things that just not a lot of other games do, and then maybe have the loading screens, which are like very snappy. Sure, they are there. Would have been nice to enter a store immediately, which happens sometimes. Only like the bigger stores.
But this is all just justification, and I love you to death. It's a little bit of copium, because like, you're acknowledging that yes, it would have been great if it wasn't this way, and yes, other games that are releasing nowadays, and even 5 years ago with something like Red Dead 2, a game which is very vast in its own right, even a game like that allows you to go to Saint Denis, walk in all the shops, go to theater shows, get back on your horse, run to the snowy area. Not a single load screen or hitch along the way. And Starfield struggles to let you go into a small shop and then walk back outside without a major load screen that stops everything for 5 seconds. Like, I know you
like that. Like, the interiors in Starfield are like way more impressive than in these other games.
No,
because they
not
can
at all.
focus.
No,
I feel that way because I'm really like, okay, damn, this spaceship looks really, really great, because I obviously bored it with like a load screen.
No, I would take Saint Denis over New Atlantis any day of the week. Like, I think
sure, yeah, but then you freaking are like comparing it with Rockstar. Like, I can also point at Rockstar, and yeah, nobody is as good as them.
It's $70 is $70, $100 is $100. Like, it's all human money.
I can also compare it with another freaking King Kong game that is coming out. It's also $60, and that makes Starfield looks like amazing.
And
so
I would agree that King Kong game would not be worth your $60. I totally agree. But if we're just comparing apples to apples, if we're just trying to say technologically what is inferior, superior, what is keeping pace with the industry and what isn't, I don't know how you argue with a straight face that Starfield is on par with the competition in the AAA dev space. Like, it's just like, it's still, they can pump out great games that are fun to play, that are expansive, that are captivating. That all can be true, while also using tech and using systems that are years and years behind.
Don't you agree that that is what makes games in general so exciting? Is because this completely, like, this team can make a very similar game to other companies, like an open world RPG type exploration game, but do it in their own way that has all these like items that you can grab, can throw, can put in your base, can like stack on top of each other. I can't do that in a lot of other games. And sure, you might be like, yeah, but why would you put that in the game if that means it has a load screen everywhere? I'm just like not sure if that's the reason, but I would imagine that because they have a lot of like tiny things, like a lot of data that is like that requires like processing power in these small spaces, that is probably what makes loading necessary, because you can't have that like seamless. Otherwise you might have like sort of like slow down when entering a room. So maybe this is like a better way to do it.
No doubt.
I prefer them going in this crazy different direction where I can steal from every NPC and they all have different items. I'm like, why is this like this deputy? I can like steal from her. Now she doesn't have a gun. They remember that 20 hours later, that 20 hours ago, I stole her gun. They still remember that. And I'm using her gun, and she doesn't have it anymore.
I mean, keeping track of NPC inventories, I don't find that too shocking. I mean, it's just a registry or a CSV file tied to the character's inventory.
It's just one of the many things I feel that this game, that I just haven't done for a while in other games. In this like huge space where at any moment I can like be in New Atlantis, then a few minutes later I can be on a completely different planet. I think it's like cool that sure, there are some things that we have to sacrifice for that, but I prefer that over every game being this massive open world that will maybe feel samey because they have to like be on the same technological level.
And I totally understand everything you're saying. And absolutely, they make trade-offs. They sacrifice some things to do other things. It's like Todd Howard said in that documentary, I think it was for the development of Skyrim, where he said, we can do anything, we just can't do everything. So we can have 1,000 potatoes in a room that all fall out when you open the door, but we can't do that and do these other things. That's absolutely true. But it doesn't change the fact that they've sacrificed staying on par and on pace with the other developers in the industry in terms of open world adventure staples such as no load screens, seamless experiences throughout. They've sacrificed that to do these other things. And you might be totally fine with these other things. You might love these other things so much that you don't care about the sacrifices, which is great. But you have to still acknowledge that it is technologically, they sacrifice this stuff in order to achieve these other things. You love these things, that's awesome. But you have to acknowledge that this was sacrificed in the process. And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. But that's a trade-off. That's not a sacrifice for me. It's like a trade-off. It's like I'm fine with those things. Like I love this game.
I'd say
I'm playing so much.
I'd say if I'm playing chess and I like give a knight for a rook, it's a trade-off and a sacrifice. Or if I give a rook for a knight, it's a trade-off and a sacrifice at the same time. Like they're very similar.
Sure. But the sacrifice sounds like very negative, and trade-off sounds like it's like. In that game, I cannot do a lot of things that I can do in Starfield, but it does have the like seamless open world. While in Starfield, I do have to load everywhere, but personally, I don't mind because of the experience they are giving me.
Yeah, and I guess you could flip it the other way. I mean, if it sounds negative, you could flip it and be like, yes, in a game like, just to use what we've been saying, like in a game like Red Dead, yes, you have a seamless experience while exploring, which helps with immersion, all those other things. But they sacrifice having thousands of potatoes in a room. It's a sacrifice. You don't get that thing,
sure.
you know? So it is true that there's sacrifices and trades that happen. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I totally think that I'm like copium. I see it a lot. Like I totally think that I'm still like really like loving this game, enjoying it a lot. And I just don't really mind. I totally see all the negatives. I just don't mind. They're not like really. When I play, I like get way higher highs than I'm like fine with the annoyances. I'm fine with having to drop all my stuff constantly because I want a fast travel when I can't with like a full inventory, which doesn't make sense.
And I think that's great. Like I think so often when we talk about games, like we can point out a bunch of stuff that they do really good, that are super interesting, that are fun, captivating. And then we list the things that it doesn't do well or that are less than ideal, right? Like the load screens. We can all agree that, yeah, if there were no load screens, that would be better. Yes. But what inevitably happens is I think people, when they really love something, they feel attacked when somebody criticizes it. It's something deep within our little monkey brains.
Yeah, sure.
And so we want to like deflect and dodge and defend it at all costs, when sometimes it's as simple as just like, yeah, no, it would be better if there were not just individual tiles that you load into. It'd be great if you could just explore the planet. Like, is it that big of a deal to me? No. But yeah, I guess it would be cool if they could do that. And clearly they sacrifice that, you know?
I personally just think that to kind of round this out, that the choice they made, like also like the outpost, we mentioned that briefly, just how in depth the ship customizer is, and also just how it's just there. You don't have to like, you can't just buy a ship outright. You can get some for free, but if you want, you can make like crazy stuff, and also like how the interior, like inside, just looks completely different. I think stuff like that is just really really cool.
And yeah, the thing I will happily agree with is the ship customization. Whatever you say about Starfield, you gotta admit it feels pretty cool to build your own ship and then to walk the hallways of it. Like at one point I was, okay, this is like gonna make me look like such an OCD freak. I hated that like the center of my ship made it so when I walk in, I have to walk around, but only the right side. I couldn't walk around both sides. So I redesigned the whole ship so that it would be symmetrical on both sides so that I could walk left or right to get to the cockpit. But you can do that in Starfield. It's crazy. I freaking love it.
I'm looking at the chat. It's like very funny.
That's a mistake. You came in here attacking Interstellar.
Hijacking your stream. I mean,
oh man.
Why why is it all about one house? We're watching this movie about space, and it's like all a house like in the freaking wild. I don't why is it like so small?
It's
such a.
It's like playing Returnal, and like I remember I booted that up for the first time. I was like, oh, this is interesting, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm in just like a little house. All of a sudden, I'm like, what?
PT?
Yeah, like what is happening? Yeah. Oh man.
No, but for some things that I totally think will at one point become clear. Like for example, I don't think there are really builds in Starfield in terms of like stats. There are stats on gear, but who really cares?
Yeah,
I totally think there are. Yeah. So there are like a lot of things that will, of course, at one point like kind of I'm just curious about the tail for this game. Right now, it kind of seems endless. There's a lot to do, but if at one point all the missions you have left are from that mission board, right? Which is like the same mission over and over again. Yeah, that will get boring over time. But I do think what they are trying with New Game Plus, without spoiling it, sounds really cool. And I think I wasn't expecting like that sort of the story to go in such a cool direction. So we will probably talk more about it in the future. Do you want to move on? I'm curious to hear your take on this next news,
let's catch donations first? Let's just catch up on super chats real quick. Firstly, Salvador Todd 16x the deceitful. How weird, it's shameful. I think Todd did a much better time this time around, or much better job this time around of not blatantly like misrepresenting things. Like with Fallout 3, he said that there were 200 endings. Like that's just, I don't know how you twist that where that's true. Like that was just ridiculous. But this time around, he didn't really do anything like that. He promised like freely explore the the galaxy and all these systems. And I think a lot of people heard freely explore and thought X when they were actually getting Y. And so there was some miscommunication there perhaps, but it was all just vague enough that, you know, there's not anything super clear to go off of. Let's see. Also, Noob Gaming. I had to say it out loud. Noob Gaming. Thank you for the $2 as well. How does it compare to Star Citizen? I mean, it released, so there's that. That's a big +1 to Starfield right there. Maybe we'll do a video. I was asked on stream earlier today if I was going to go back and try Starfield or Star Citizen again, and I'm down because they fixed it after the 3.1 update that broke everything, so it's a good time to try it again.
I think that could be fun, like No Man's Sky, first Star Citizen, first Starfield or something.
Yeah, just compare it all. Could be interesting. And Samaya Goel, I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name. Thank you also for the super chat. You can criticize God of War Ragnarok for not having RPG elements and an expansive open world, but it's just not meant to be that. Starfield is a Bethesda RPG IMO, never intended to be a space exploration game like No Man's Sky. This is something I've seen. I don't know if it's just a copy pasta or something, but I've seen that almost word for word identically on Twitter. So I've seen that before. But basically what I say to that is absolutely it wasn't trying to be No Man's Sky, pretty clearly. But when you enter into a genre and a subgenre of games and you promise identical things to these other games, but you do it all way worse, you're going to be compared. In the same way that if Ubisoft comes out with an RPG, a narrative RPG, they will be compared to Baldur's Gate, especially if they're charging the same price or more. So it just, like, it's cool that they weren't trying to do the same thing, but they will be compared because the bar raises with other games that come into the same genre and do things better.
I'm not like really a big like space person, but does any like No Man's Sky, Star Citizen, Elite Dangerous have like shipboarding?
I believe No Man's Sky does. Star Citizen does. Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
You'll have to correct me with No Man's Sky, but I know for a fact Star Citizen does. In fact, it was one of the first missions I did, and then I got downed and had to wait for a space medic to come and pick me up so I didn't lose my loot. It was actually a kind of crazy thing.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It was actually. It was pretty fun. Again, at least Starfield launch, Star Citizen, it's cool. They're doing a lot, but yeah, it's a whole thing. But yeah,
Cool.
all that
Cool,
to say,
cool.
I just think that is important to note that they've entered this consideration themselves.
To round it out, that's why I think it's kind of cool that even though this game sure doesn't have like the same like elements that a lot of people who like these science fiction like space games expect, it does bring something else, I think, to the table in terms of like the narrative focus and sort of the structure there.
Yeah,
so
it's a great Bethesda RPG. It's a terrible space exploration game, and that's what I would say. And lastly, and then we'll shift to the next topic, so you guys can, you don't have to listen to us ramble about Starfield anymore. Thank you to Planet Schlorpian. It's a tremendous name. Thank you for the 5. Starfield is just another Bethesda game, as will be Elder Scrolls 6. Hence why I think Crimson Desert looks far more promising. Looks actually current/next gen. The one thing I will agree is that Crimson Desert looks insane. It looks too good to be true, which might be a red flag, but time will tell. We shall see.
Yes.
We shall see. What is our next topic, Mr. JorRaptor?
Well, I'm not sure if you already discussed this on stream, but Volition, the studio behind Saints Row and Red Faction, before it, of course, they also did Agents of Mayhem. Remember that game?
Oh, it was phenomenal. It was great.
Sold 300,000 copies. I looked it up for my video.
Ooh.
And they shut down. It's over. Volition is dead. And they have been around for 30 years, made, of course, a ton of games. And it's part because like Embracer is doing a restructuring program. Basically, they, of course, Embracer, if you're not familiar, bought like a ton of studios. They have like 136 or something, like a lot of studios that they bought, including THQ Nordic as kind of their arm. They have PlayOn, they have Gearbox Publishing, and
a ton of AA studios, of AA studios.
And they own Gearbox, but 2K owns Borderlands, so they have like the bad version of Gearbox or something.
That's awkward.
Yeah. But yeah, they were going to make this deal with the Saudi Arabia like government. They are, of course, like pumping a lot of cash in gaming, and they were like very close to signing this $2 billion deal for the next 5 years. So get like $2 billion over the course of 5 years, so they could like invest in their studios. But that deal fell through at the last minute, and they were really, really dependent on that, which is also like kind of a red flag. Like if you have to have like money from an entity like that to be like successful, don't do that. But yeah, so that fell through, and now they're kind of looking everywhere to probably close studios and get rid of some of the stuff that they bought. And Volition, it's kind of sad, but I would argue, and I'm curious to hear your take on it, writing was kind of on the wall. Like, I'm really like, Saints Row, of course, came out last year, the reboot. And again, before that, Agents of Mayhem was the game that they did. So that only sold 300,000 copies. Usually what you see with like studios, if they try a new IP, Marvel's Avengers, for example, like Crystal Dynamics, they're now going back to Tomb Raider. We have BioWare now going back to Dragon Age and Mass Effect after they did Anthem and Veiled. I think like Rocksteady is probably going to go back to Batman after Suicide Squad. So Volition did that as well. But if they cannot even make their own like cash cow work, Saints Row, what else are they going to do?
Yeah.
So
I agree. This was unfortunately very likely to happen. And what we talked about on stream earlier was just that the biggest problem for a company like Volition that has had just a series of rough releases, to say the very least, is that they stop attracting new talent and their established talent leaves. And so then you're like, okay, well, Volition's still here. It's a building. But the only thing that makes a studio worth anything is the team within it, is the leadership or the devs that have been there for years and years. If you get rid of all of them, it's just a building with computers in it. So for Volition, like after Saints Row 2022, who wants to graduate from art school and go work at Volition? Probably very, very few people. Everybody wants to go and apply to BGS or to Naughty Dog or to any of these other studios. And anybody who was at Volition that had some serious credentials probably jumped ship right before Saints Row or shortly after and have gone to work for other studios. And this is like the big damaging thing for the value of a studio, is that once you've lost that talent and you have no pull to get new talent in, you're just kind of there. And after blowing release after release, it's just clear that this was not the team that they once were.
It is worth noting that they are from Illinois, which like a place where not a lot of companies, game developers are. And I listened to like an interview that MinMax did before the launch of Saints Row, where he also asked, "How are you feeling about Saints Row?" And they were like, "It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great," which was kind of painful a few weeks later. But
Yeah,
they were also like, "We grew up here. We so a lot of developers, like, we grew up here." And we've been working at Volition for a long time, because like the only like sort of reaching AAA like in terms of budget, like Saints Row, that reboot cost $100 million.
yeah,
Which crazy. But I played it, I finished it, I see it. Like, this is like making an open world game like that, like a GTA Lite, is really expensive with the police system, like the amount of AI you need, the system, all the stuff that you have to make it work. So, but my points with Illinois is like, I do think that there were like a lot of people just there that have been living there for a long time, and they were at Volition, and now they're like, damn, what are we going to do now?
yeah.
I can imagine it's really gonna suck. But also, Saints Row cost 100 million. Like, if you are Embracer, you're probably like, okay, so what are you guys gonna do next?
Yeah.
Reboot Saints Row again? Are we gonna gamble another 100 million on that?
Well, it's like you
Seems
said,
like
this
a-
was their cash cow. If they can't make money with their cash cow, it's just a stupid cow. Like, what are you doing? Like, there's nothing to do. You're screwed. I agree. I mean, it just was a terrible situation, and we watched a video on stream earlier that was interesting. I think the creator's name was Flippy, but he's a Saints Row creator, and he did an interesting video where he broke down and basically showed how there's good evidence that Deep Silver, the publisher of the game, was probably responsible for the tone, for the writing, for all the stuff that made the game really memeable in the worst possible ways. And that also could explain why the initial pitch for the Saints Row reboot years and years ago was that it was going to be like a grounded, gritty Saints Row 2 reboot, effectively. And then what we got was so not that. It was so totally
Gen
different.
Z.
Very Gen Z, or like, as I describe it, it was like a 60-year-old's idea of what Gen Z is.
Yeah. How you doing, fellow kids?
Yeah, how are you doing, fellow kids? It was just terrible. So, however this happened, whatever caused this to occur, the impact is the same. Like, the studio is shutting down after 30 years. It's going away. The IPs have been moved to Play On. I don't think we'll see them anytime soon. There's no way they launch any new Saints Row project in the next decade.
They might like launch Switch 2 like, they're probably just gonna like re-release the old games again and again and again, or maybe do like a remake of like Saints Row 2 or something.
That's been thrown. Apparently they were working on a remaster of Saints Row 2, but nobody knows what that's going to be like at this point. So we'll see. I mean, they screwed up Red Faction back in 2011 with Red Faction Armageddon. And since then, that franchise has been dormant, except for the Red Faction remastered. I'm not joking. That's what it was called. Remastered edition of Red Faction Guerrilla. And after that, nothing. So who knows if they're going to ever touch Red Faction again or Saints Row for the next decade. But
like, you said like the tone of like Saints Row 2, they had like, with this budget, they could have like, I remember the hype for this game, like even with like the negativity, like a month before launch, people wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt, because they wanted something like this. With Rockstar now releasing a new GTA every decade, there is like sort of appetite for a sort of gangster style game in a big open world. So I think the reveal, even though you already saw like the main characters, like the cast was just really bad, and that was really what brought the whole thing down. The dialogue, so that's why I think it's interesting that maybe Deep Silver had like the idea for this. Still, the writers had to write these characters, and that was also really bad. Maybe because they had like, hey, you have to be like this, and they were like, what the heck? That's not what we want to do.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But imagine if they just made it more like sort of old school and like the older games that people actually liked instead of something that nobody asked for. Wow,
Yeah.
what a concept.
Yeah. Can you
What a
imagine? It's just, I am still so shocked that we so consistently get these weird Gen Z trying to be hipster type games time and time again, and they always are mocked online relentlessly, and yet we still get them time and time again. It's like, you would think somebody would notice and put the like 2 and 2 together, but they just keep doing it over and over and over and over again. And like gamers have shown they're just not that into the vibe of Saints Row 2022, of Watch Dogs 2, of Watch Dogs Legion to a certain extent. Like, they're just not into it. They just want something a little more grounded.
Yeah, and I just think like that it just looks really nice on the whiteboard. Like, you got all these Gen Z kids, they're starting to get money, they're starting to be more like they're getting off their phone, finally getting into the real gaming space in terms of like console and PC gaming. We need to have a game for them, and they are like they want to they have like all these things in their mind. They are hackers, they dislike billionaires, they don't like the government, so let's make a game about hackers stealing from billionaires and then killing each other. Like
what is that called? I always forget. A oh god, what is that game called, everybody?
Freestyle? No, it's something like that.
Fair Games.
Fair Games
with a dollar sign.
Yeah. And then you had Hyenas, kind of similar sort of vibe. Yeah.
Everybody wants this. This is gonna be great and totally not flop, which is
and
why
they have like something like Finals, which is really focused on, hey, we have cool gameplay and destruction, and everyone is like, yeah, I want that.
yeah. Yeah, and the Finals, that is a good one. I guess that still isn't out yet. They had the playtest, but yeah, the Finals is an interesting game. But all told, I mean, it's just, maybe one day they will wake up and realize that this doesn't work. But I think you're right. It is a game designed by spreadsheet and the whiteboard of a conference room, not by actually asking players or being a gamer and knowing what they want. Like, it is, oh, we're going to make a game designed around what's trending on TikTok within this age range. And we're going to just turn that into a video game. And then they act shocked when the internet mocks them relentlessly. And, like, the one thing teenagers hate above all else is being the odd one out and playing the thing that everybody else hates. Like, no, maybe an edgelord likes to do that, likes to be the contrarian, but in general, people like to kind of go with the flow. And so to come out with a game that everybody online universally hates and mocks, you shouldn't be surprised at all that teenagers are like, no, that sucks, that's stupid too. It's just,
they have so many options now. You have like so much stuff to play, and then it's so hard to kind of convince them. And also, like, I think this new generation in particular, like, because they're online all the time, they know when a company is like marketing towards them, that they can like see right through it. So you have to like already think like a few steps ahead. And all these games are not doing that. The hero shooters, man. How many hero shooters are like successful? Overwatch and Apex Legends, and of course Team Fortress, which was like way before.
Yeah, that's the OG. I mean, could you say that like Rainbow Six is a character shooter?
It's sure, but it's not like the colorful arty style though that we do see in all these games.
Yeah, I think it definitely appeals to a different player base. I don't think people are going from Overwatch to Rainbow Six, but it's interesting that every studio is trying to do it, and maybe it's because it's such a initially simple concept that executives think it's going to be easy to pull off and find success in. but as we've seen, it's really not. It's actually
No.
quite difficult.
Yeah, and then you have these games that you hear about for years, and like Final is not even that bad, but like Hyenas, like that was announced like in 2020 or something. I still think a lot of people don't even know what I'm talking about. It's like
Yeah.
the freaking guys that made Alien Isolation are now making that game. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
We could have had a cool horror game, I think, by them already.
Oh,
Or
probably.
is it the guys from the? I think we have the Creative Assembly. It's like Alien Isolation, but they also do like the RTS games.
Oh.
But
Yeah, it's like, well, somebody was asking in chat earlier. Oh, Valorant is another one. You're right.
oh yeah, good one. Yeah,
That's a good one. Yeah. I mean, somebody was asking in chat
Yeah,
earlier.
they're now doing hyenas.
Oh, Jesus. Somebody was asking in chat earlier, why doesn't Volition just like form a new studio now that they've been shut down, form a new studio independently and make the games they want to make without corporate overlords? The problem is, in order to do that and make a game like Saints Row exactly how they want, but in their own IP, you need $100 million. And that is not even including the costs of like the initial setup of the studio, infrastructure, servers, backups to everything, making sure you can pay everybody initially with actual cash, not just debt that is scheduled out for years and years. Like,
and
it's not
and
that
they
easy.
can't be like pointing at their previous release and say, hey, see, let's do that again. Like, why would they trust them? So
yeah, they don't want to be the guys that are like, hello, Mr. Banker, give us $100 million. Like, okay, why should we do that? Well, because we just lost the company we left and got fired from. We lost them tens of millions of dollars with the last thing we did. Nobody is going to trust them with that. So it just doesn't frankly work. Like, and that's why, you know, this was kind of doomed from the moment.
But they had the perfect moment, because we are hearing like a lot of like rumors about GTA actually hitting next year. So even like that game is gonna live forever. Like, and you're gonna be compared. So they had like the perfect moment last year to launch this game. They had delays after delays. I do think though that if you asked a few years before Saints Row came out, Dead Island 2 or Saints Row, which one is gonna flop? Dead Island 2 actually turned out to be pretty great.
That
and
surprised everybody,
really
man.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
they dodged the bullet there, because if that game did not hit expectations, then Buster Studios would be done for as well.
Yeah.
So, but
Well,
yeah,
good for
expect
them.
Dead Island 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
They're gonna milk that.
Can't blame them. Let's shift forward to this. This is like, this makes
Did
a
you
lot
see
of
this?
sense. I did not see this until we were
And
starting the
it's-
show.
I'm gonna like go out of my limb to say this is the biggest plot twist of the year. For me, it's like, what the heck? Like, I had to stop for a minute and was like, I need to talk to people about it. This is crazy. Okay, so
yeah, walk us through it. This is actually
okay.
crazy. Yeah.
So I don't know if I have to laugh or cry. It's like kind of in the middle. It's like, it's at least very interesting. So of course we have Assassin's Creed codename Jade that now turned into Assassin's Creed Jade. So the mobile game Assassin's Creed set in ancient China. We know that Tencent Level Infinite is publishing it, and Ubisoft has always been kind of cagey about who is making the game. And usually we hear that from moment one, right? We already know Red is being developed by Quebec. We know Hexe, which like still very far off, is Montreal. This mobile game, we don't know. It was always kind of weird. Okay, so we had a lot of trailers. It looks really good. People have played it in the open beta. It's basically Odyssey on your phone. And then they are like releasing on social media concept art of the game, because I think it's nearing completion. So they're like, okay, people that worked on it can finally show, hey, I did this restaurant or whatever, I did this building in this game. And then they forgot to remove the icon of the developer for this game. And you think, okay, why is that a big deal? Well, again, Ubisoft has been very secretive about it. And then if you like zoom in, and actually Animus, full credit to them, of course, they were like, what the heck? So the developer is called Timmy, Timmy.
Yeah, something like
I don't
that.
know how you want to pronounce it. we don't know about who is this developer. I don't know. But then we, of course, know like they're a Tencent game studio, sure. And then we have the news that Ashraf Ismail, of course, the director on Black Flag, Origins, and Valhalla, before he got fired from Ubisoft, there was news in 2021, I think, that he was getting back into game development again. So basically what he did, like in short, he was kind of using his position of power as this like big wig at Ubisoft. He was like really one of the biggest people working on Assassin's Creed, creative director on Valhalla, etc., etc. And he was kind of like using that to manipulate people in the community, girls, into dating with him. And like, yeah, I think he was sleeping with them as well. And all like and sharing like very secretive information about the studio. So he was like breaking NDAs, and these women, they really thought that they were like special, and that they had like a bond, something going on. And then when they were like saying this kind of getting weird, he pulled a card where it was like, yeah, but my wife, or like, no, my kid has this disease or something, so I'm like really sad, and you're making me happy. I'm kind of paraphrasing. That is kind of what happened.
Just toxic.
Yeah, toxic,
shit, yeah.
like manipulation, and already from a position of power, like going to people. Like, imagine you're like this huge fan of Assassin's Creed, and then like the big guy at Ubisoft is like texting you, and you're meeting up and stuff. You're kind of like, whoa, this is a big deal. So he was like totally using that. Turned out he had a wife. He was like married, but nobody knew that. So yeah, he was being fired from Ubisoft, obviously, when this all came out in the summer of 2020. Of course, huge exodus, a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
finally,
right before Valhalla launched, it was a whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was like, okay, Ashraf, he posted, I think, a tweet, because he was like a very front-facing guy. Like, I even interviewed him for Valhalla like a month before or something.
Oh God.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, I just spoke to him like about Origins, and I met him a couple of times. And then so he was fired, and then it was like, okay, it's probably over, right? Now then he suddenly comes up again, and he's like working at Tencent, and I'm gonna like get the news story right here, so I can like properly kind of read it. I can like share it with you as well in the doc, so you can like grab it as well. People are probably already kind of thinking where, or like,
you can see where this is going. Yeah.
This like the VGC fired Assassin's Creed creative director Ashraf Ismail is now working at Tencent. He's serving as a consulting creative director, and that is like two completely like opposite words meshed together. How can you be a consulting creative director? You're either a consultant who like comes in maybe a few times a month, talks about things, or a creative director who's like one of the most hands-on people with a game ever. But he's a consulting creative director. Okay, sure. And like, yeah, so he joins this studio, this Tencent, and we're like, okay, this big Tencent. But it is with the Timey Studio Group. So it is the studio that is making this Assassin's Creed mobile game. So he somehow found a way to get back into making Assassin's Creed again. And like factually, it makes sense. Like, he has a ton of knowledge about this. He, I think, with of course his team, invented, or like he made Origins. He was like at the forefront of this RPG change in Assassin's Creed. So obviously he's like the best person to hire for this job. But it's of course like really weird, because he was fired to not work on Assassin's Creed again, but now he's making another big Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. Well, it's just like Ashraf was a huge asset to Ubisoft, and so when all this came out about him, initially like details were kind of sparse. Like, we didn't know a lot of the nitty gritty of what was going on. It just seemed like okay, so he cheated on his wife and so he's being fired. Like, it's horrible to do that to your wife, especially if you've got kids. It's horrifying. But like, is that really why this company that is not involved with his personal life is firing him from this very important position? Well, then now we know a lot more. He's breaking NDAs. He's sharing confidential information with these girls in positions of power to manipulate them. Like, not only is he just, in my humble opinion, allegedly a piece of shit, but also he's breaking NDAs and leaking sensitive information for his own personal aggrandizement and satisfaction. So it makes sense why they would fire him. But like I said, he's an
100%.
asset. And so they decided, well, what if we still like kind of used him, but we like keep it very hush hush, and then he's just like, he's not even like an employee, he's a consultant, even though he's probably been working on this for years. So
he's probably there every day, like totally.
But now they have plausible deniability. Oh, we didn't even realize he was a consultant, guys. Like, it's just, oops, who would have thunk it? And it's not even under Ubisoft, it's under Tencent. So it's not even our employee, right? Like, it's a small world, but this was one of the craziest little plot twists, I totally agree, related to this game. I mean, it seemed too good to be made by a team that's never touched Assassin's Creed before.
It makes so much sense. That is also the thing. It makes so much sense that there is. It was always weird. Like, how can they make basically Odyssey 2? Obviously, that's like, it feels like Odyssey 2. I totally think that probably in terms of narrative and like choices, Odyssey will be miles ahead of Jade. But still, what they are trying to do, they're actually implementing really cool new RPG systems, and like the structure is very similar. They're doing a lot of cool stuff instead of just making one of the RPG games, on mobile. And we gotta like listen to Tencent for a bit. So during our work with Ash, so wow, they can like call him like that, sure. He has carried himself in a professional manner and has consistently shown an eagerness to learn and grow as both a team member and a person.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he learned from this, if he did that easily gets to work on a new Assassin's Creed again. But
I mean, it's just,
it's gonna get out. I'm really curious because we are like, of course, like really in the trenches. I haven't seen anyone pick this up yet.
Yeah.
And Ubisoft and Tencent are trying their best to not do it, but
keep it hush hush. I
mean,
mean,
concept art, it cost them a lot of money. I think.
This was an oopsie. I mean, realistically, I don't think this is a big enough deal to the vast majority of players where they're going to be like, boycott it. I don't think it'll make a difference. It's definitely stinky. And it's weird. And like, on the one hand, I remember when I talked about the whole Ashraf thing back in 2020, I got comments when people were like, well, like, he's apologized, and at some point, shouldn't we give people second chances? I mean, maybe it was an honest mistake, or a moment of weakness, whatever they said. They're like, it's, I think it was in a kind of reaction to the cancel culture thing. And like, we shouldn't just cancel somebody's entire life and life's work over a mistake. I mean, what I would say is that it seems like this was consistent behavior over extended periods of time with multiple people. This allegedly was not just like, oopsie, I sent the wrong email to the wrong person. Oh, gee, like, it wasn't like that. So I don't, if I were in charge of Ubisoft, I would just be like, listen, man, you've done some good work for us, but you understand, like, this is unacceptable and we need you to go.
Yeah, but I don't think they're making these calls. Like, they got a ton of money from Tencent to license Assassin's Creed so they can make this game. And then Tencent is like, hey, who's free to work on this? And Asher's like, I got nothing.
It makes perfect sense why they would do it. And it is like, it's very, very, very possible, maybe even likely, that even if Ubisoft wanted Ashraf Ismail to be pulled from the project, that they have no say, because it's Tencent. And let's be honest, Tencent don't give no shits. Like, they don't care at all if they're upsetting some snowflakes in the West that are pissed off about this guy's history. Like, they don't care. They don't care at all. So it's just a weird story that I don't think any of us saw coming, but like you said,
No.
it makes so much
So much
sense
sense.
all of a sudden. And
Yeah.
I guess we'll see
I
if
think it's-
anything comes of this. But it makes sense why they've been so coy about who's actually making the
Yeah,
game, and now it all comes together.
I thought it was because it was not a Ubisoft studio, so they were maybe like scared that people would be like, oh, but I want like how are they making sure that they keep the same quality from the previous games or something? That's not even the reason. There's like this extra layer that we now
Little
see.
extra layer of stank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's stinky, but apparently the game looks and plays pretty well. I still have not tried it. Amazingly enough.
There is a second beta coming.
We'll see.
More chance to try it. Maybe I can interview Ashraf again.
Hey buddy, what's up?
Hey,
It's been a minute. Lots has happened, huh?
Yeah. How have you been?
Oh god. So yeah, that's our wacky wild story of the day. I mean, make of it what you will. I'm sure you will. I don't even really know what to say. It's just
Let's see if the chat still has something that we should discuss, and then we're gonna head out. I'm still gonna publish a Starfield video, do some shorts that I still have to prepare.
oh yeah.
And then probably play the final mission. I think I'm there.
You think you're ready? Buckle up.
Yeah, and then go to bed because it's like very late here.
That sounds like a plan. No, there was never, my understanding is that this was not a criminal matter.
No.
And what Ubisoft decided to do was to just fire him. If there was like something where they required him to pay restitution or something for breaking the NDAs, we don't know anything about that. As far as anybody on the outside knows, they just said, get out of here. And he left, or he resigned because he knew that's where it would go. And so he left. As far as I'm aware, there was no like punitive stuff. He didn't leave on like under duress or anything. Like he just left.
Yeah, I gotta say, like the stuff that I said, I said it kind of definitive, but that is just really what all came out, and there was a lot of people actually came forward that were kind of victim of this and shared the conversations that happened. So like that's kind of like the evidence that we have, and of course him like totally retrieving, saying sorry. It's a like there are multiple levels of stuff that happened at Ubisoft with like some people that left. This is totally horrible. But yeah, it's there are some people that I don't think ever come back to the gaming industry because of what they did. Like, let's put it that way.
Yeah. Let's see. Logan and breaking an NDA is breaking the law. Maybe. No, my understanding based on like what my family has described to me, because we have a lot of lawyers in our family, is contracts between individuals, parties, companies, that type of thing. Those are legally binding, but it's not the same as breaking the law, because the law would be like a criminal code or something. Breaking an NDA would be a civil offense in most countries, and so it's still like punishable through the legal system, but it's not breaking the law. I don't know if that matters, but yeah, we're gonna be semantic about it. Let's see, any other little tidbits, anything else? Yeah, he was at the forefront of AC since Black Flag. Yeah, after Black Flag's overwhelming success, he definitely carried a lot of sway there.
Wait, that's why I think it's interesting that they also did Valhalla, which was,
it was weird. I have a feeling
way worse.
And like, it's a guttural instinct, and I have no evidence to back it up. So let me be very clear. This is speculative nonsense, everybody. But the fact that all of this stuff started to break out in early 2020 in the ramp up towards Valhalla's final launch makes me feel like there maybe were some things that would have gotten cut and trimmed. A lot of the fat would have gotten trimmed as Valhalla got closer to launch. And with the game's creative director being thrown out and then other people trying to take over at the last minute for the last 6 months or so, a lot of that fat didn't get cut because they were like, well, we don't really know what Ash would have done, so we're just gonna like kind of leave it and go with that. Because my biggest problem with Valhalla is that there's a lot of bloat and none of it was trimmed, and perhaps he was going to trim it before, like in the lead up to the final launch. I don't know, because I still think there's a lot of design choices that were just frankly weird that were set in stone by the time he left. But who knows? I mean, I'm sure it didn't help the game's polishing process or refinement and final touches to have the creative director booted in the middle of that. Like, I'm sure that made the game worse compared to better, but as to how much
It's
of it
hard to
affected
say. I mean, in that window, they were really only polishing, so I'm not sure if that means that they are like gonna strip down the fat, because it was like happening in June, July. So that was when we got to play.
I mean, maybe I'm mistaken. I thought the story of the stuff with Ash started to break early that year. Did the story start to break in like June? Because
Yeah, that was when, like, during COVID.
It was during COVID. It was pretty early, I thought. I mean, it's still early within that period, but maybe I'm mistaken, and I'm thinking that the stuff with him started to ramp up earlier, and then after like a month or two,
August
he left.
2020 is when he got terminated.
Okay.
So that was like really near the launch. So
yeah,
but in
that's
June,
pretty close.
stuff came out. In June, Ismail was accused on Twitter of repeatedly attempting to engage in affairs by leveraging his status as a game director and lying about being single.
So I guess it wasn't that long. So in that case, yeah, maybe it wasn't that big of a loss because Valhalla, sorry,
Assassin's Creed Valhalla
was not. I think I wouldn't call that his best work. I think it was.
Yeah.
It was a swing and a miss, largely. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Real quick, let's see. Hold on. Samaya, Luke needs to play AC Mirage to cleanse himself of Starfield. Dude, I want to talk about it, but we can't. One day, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, one day we will. And yeah, it's
Gonna be interesting.
It's going to be an interesting day. There will be things and words said in sentences that construct paragraphs, and we will feel emotions while stating those things.
Wow.
Have I said too much?
No.
Oh, geez. Anyway, this has been a lovely time. Thank you all for chilling with us. Kind of a slow news week, couple of big bombs of news, but nothing too crazy. Biggest thing is just, you know, we got Starfield officially launching this week. Over the next couple of weeks, we have other big games. Mortal Kombat's launching. We've got Lies of P. We've got all sorts of stuff. It's a great time to be a gamer. It's been a tremendous year.
Yeah.
We are all very, very fortunate. And there's still a couple of big games still coming out. Spider-Man 2 is on the way. Oh, baby. It's going to be a great, great fall. And, the Game Awards are going to be insane. It's going to be a very good year. So thank you, everybody for chilling. I can barely talk. Thank you, everybody, for chilling. Thanks for
thanks.
listening.
I see some people with Team Jor with the Starfield take.
Oh, yeah.
Bye.
Naturally. People were like, do a poll, Team Luke versus Team Jor. And I was like, we don't need to do that. I don't know.
No, we're not in war. We're just having a good cover. Would have been like, it would have sucked if we all had the same takes all the time.
Yeah. I think it's good to have some.
Be with Mirage.
Will we agree? Will we disagree? Who knows? We're about to find out. No, I'm kidding. Thank you, everybody, for chilling with us. Much love. We'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.
Goodbye. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.